Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Money Mindset Manifesting Business Show. We have got the gorgeous Mafe with us today, and we are going to be talking all about podcasting and the potential to grow your business, to grow your audience, to turn listeners into buyers. So exciting. I'm so excited, Mafe, to dive into this conversation with you and unravel it. And I'm sure all our listeners and watchers, they are super eager to know what you have got to say. So please introduce yourself. Actually, firstly, welcome to the show, Angel. Thank you so much for coming on as a guest speaker. So if you could please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came about teaching all about podcasting.
Of course. Thank you so much, Yvette, for having me on the show. This is such an honor. And yeah, well, as you say, my name is Mafe. I am originally from Venezuela and I moved to Vancouver, Canada, about 11 years ago. Oh, wow. I can't believe that this year is going to be 11 years.
Wow.
Like time goes by so fast. And I remember back in 2020 when the world shut down and I had so much free time. I was like, what can I do to, one, fill my time and two, make extra income? So I started researching and I decided to become a VA. And one of the clients that I found was like, can you edit my podcast for me? At that time, I literally had no idea about anything. And I'm like, well, I have no idea about anything. So this is the price that I can offer you for the hours. This is obviously going to be a super discounted price because like I am learning. So thank you for the opportunity. And that was it for me. I fell in love with podcasting and I was like, how can this be the only thing that I do, right?
Really?
So that's how I did, that's when I decided to pivot my business completely. And that's when I started to learn. So I decided to launch my own podcast as a test because I had obviously edited this person's pod, like my client's podcast and stuff, but I had never gone through the actual process of launching one. And I was like, you know what, let me go through one. And I feel
Wow.
like I also have things to say, so why not? So yeah, that's how I ended up becoming a podcast manager.
Wow, I just love that. It is so interesting. And I feel like also such a different path to take in the online world. It's such a specific niche, but I think it is so interesting because I know for a fact I have thought of launching a podcast for so many years. But if you could tell us a little bit about the biggest misconception that entrepreneurs have when starting a podcast, I'd love to dive into that.
Oh my God, so many. But I feel like the biggest
Really?
one that they have, yeah, I feel like the biggest one that they have is that they just can basically record a voice note into their phone and then hit publish. And somehow that's gonna be easy. And what people don't realize is the amount of work and time that it takes to actually produce a podcast, or not necessarily produce a podcast, but produce a successful podcast, which is like completely different because you can have a podcast that's a hobby that you don't care, that you treat like whatever. But that's obviously not going to be bringing you clients and converting your listeners into clients, right? So I
Yes.
feel like, yeah, that's the biggest misconception, that people don't realize how much work it actually is to have a successful podcast.
Mm, okay, I see. So it isn't just like you say, record and upload, because I mean, you talk about editing and you talk about, I know there's like an intro and there's all sorts of things that we don't even realize goes on behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Um,
And then also, like, one more thing is that people think that by copying what other people are doing, they're also going to have a successful podcast, which is absolutely not true.
okay, so define a successful podcast so that people can understand what you're saying.
So for me, a successful podcast, like you defined what a successful podcast mean to you, right? It's not about the
Sure.
downloads. It's not about how many sponsors you get. It's not about how many people share it on social media. Or maybe that is your definition of success, right? For me, a successful podcast, if you are a business owner, and that business owner is going to be important because you're a business owner with a podcast. You're not a podcaster, you know?
Right.
And you're using that podcast as a medium to connect deeper with your listeners, with to connect deeper with your audience, for them to get to know you better, right? And so yeah, that's why you get to define success. You get to define what success is when you're launching a podcast. So maybe again, like going back to hobby versus like business assets. So if you have a podcast as a hobby, is it because you want to explore more about the topic that you're talking about, and that's what got you into podcasting, maybe because you process things better if you're talking about them. If you have a hobby, is it because you want to connect with other people, but then at the end of the day you have to have a plan to make sure that you are connecting to the right people, right? So, and then when it comes to business, like you have to be really intentional about the content that you create for your podcast and the things that you talk about, because it's not the same of having, I don't know, a conversational podcast that it's all going to be interviews versus like you being shown as the expert in your field. You know what I mean?
Yes. Okay. So yes, you do get different ones like that. I have listened to many podcasts, and it's exactly what you're saying. Um, the business owner talks about her business and has guests on the podcast, so she's showing her side. So I love that mix as well. So how would you then use a podcast if that is your main um, body of content? How would you use it to repurpose on other platforms, so that you're not only doing a podcast and you want to almost market it? Would you like
Yeah.
advertise it, or just show, like, just bring more people in and all the things? How would you use it in that way?
I feel that having, so you sit down, you record your episode, it's going to be 20 minutes, an hour, or however long you want it to be, right? Because at the end of the day, your podcast is your podcast and you're supposed to do what works for you and not what works for other people. Um, but there are so many ways to repurpose that content and to make that your main factory of content. Because okay, let's think about like one podcast episode. Like that's your like that's the top of the funnel if you want to think
Okay.
about it that way, right? So then from there, you can have video clips, that short video clips that you can use as a teaser, that you can post on Instagram, TikTok, whatever social media you use to promote that. Then you can also do blog post. You can pull out quotes of that. So that's one, two, three pieces of content that you already have and you only recorded 1 hour.
Wow.
Yeah. Another thing, obviously, like there's so many threads posts that you can pull out of from an episode. Because threads or X Twitter, whatever, they're like short form, right? It's like to the point, couple of sentences. And imagine like all the content that you've already created. Like you don't have to think about that anymore. Like you just can go into the transcript of the episode and be like, okay, maybe I talked about this, maybe I talked about that. And then also like leveraging AI by doing that. um, I'm not saying just use ChatGPT to do all your content for you. No, use it
Sure.
wisely.
Yes. Yes. You need some
Yeah.
human wisdom in there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I
Right.
mean, like robots, I heard this the other day and it resonated with me so much. Robots need input.
Yeah.
And they need
Yeah.
like our input. They need us to tell them what to do, right? Because if
Yeah.
not, then they're not gonna give you the answers. They're just gonna give you a
Sure.
generic action answer, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So yeah, I would say so videos for social media, quotes for carousel post, like Instagram stories. I'm just talking about Instagram because those are like my clients. That's where
Sure.
they promote their podcast.
Yeah.
But you can even and then when it comes to market your podcast, if you're part of any communities and they let you promote your episodes, use that because those are the rooms where people that want to listen to you are, right? Like you are in that room for a reason, right? Because you felt connected, you felt seen, you felt whatever it is that you felt that drew you to that community. Use that in your like as an advantage to promote your podcast and to get to more people.
Okay. All right. So now you triggered a question. You were
Mm-hmm.
saying you could use it as video clips.
Mm-hmm.
So someone watching right now, which includes me, by the way, someone watching in the audience
I
watching
love
this,
that.
right? Um, how would you record the podcast? So would you do it on Zoom so that you can upload to YouTube as I do with my channel? Because you were saying you can take a video clip or you put a little audio. So what would the best way be to sit down? Oh, I'm going to cheers you, actually. Let's go. Let's go.
Cheers.
Cheers. Tap.
I love that
What
we
would,
have the
love
same
it.
tumbler.
I love it. What would you say is the best way to go about recording? Because obviously we don't want to record on our phones, as you said. How would you set that up?
It depends. So Zoom works. It's not my favorite platform, but it works. It's easy. People know how to use it. People are familiar with Zoom. So yes, it is a platform that you can use. But there are also so many like apps now that do podcast recording. So the one that I recommend, and only because I use their software to edit my podcast, is Squadcast. So now they are part of a company called Descript. And Descript is just a software where you basically upload your audio, your video, or whatever it is that you want, and then it transcribes it. And then you edit your podcast as if it were like a text that you're editing, right? Like a Word
Mhm.
document. Yeah, I think
Wow.
so they bought Squadcast, and that's like my favorite platform to use. And then there's also Riverside is another way that you can do it, but like it's different things, right? Like at the end of the day, I feel that you need to choose a platform that works for you. You need to
Yes.
choose like if you're using Zoom for your business, and yeah, it's not ideal, but if it works for
Why?
you, it works for you.
Why? Why do you say it's not ideal? What are the downfalls of Zoom versus the other software you've been talking about to record on?
Yeah, so Zoom was not made for recording, like for recording podcasts specifically, but these other two, Riverside and Squadcast, they were. So the quality of the audio is a little bit better. And the quality
Okay.
of the video as well is a little bit better. And then like they just work differently. Because again, Zoom is, it's like Skype, right? It's just to talk to other people. It wasn't really made to record a podcast, but it has the capabilities and people know it. And if that's what worked for you, go for it. Like, I'm not gonna judge you for it.
Sure, sure, sure. Um, okay, so if we talk about taking bits and pieces of your podcast and putting it out there, for me, that sounds very much like lead generation, a lead magnet, a freebie, like all the things with all the names. Could you use your podcast as lead generation from day one, or do you first need to build it up and have so many views and downloads before you can start doing that? What would your advice be on that?
Well, first of all, I just want your like people that are watching this to know that having a podcast is a long game. You're not here for to get viral. You're not here for the 30-second videos. You're here for the depth that it provides, right? Like you're here to connect with the other person, right? And I feel that if you already have an audience and you decide to launch a podcast, you can absolutely make it like a lead generation machine from day one. Why? Because you have to, sorry, let me just backtrack a little bit because I have like so many things in my head
Yeah.
I want to say. So, if you already have an audience, you can turn it into a lead generation machine like from day one. But you have to be really intentional with the content. And also, you have to be really really specific with your why. Why are you creating this podcast, right? Because that is what's going to trickle down into the topics that you're going to talk about and the angles that you're going to explore on your podcast, right? Because there's one thing about, so say for example, this is mindset and manifestation, right? Like this is what your channel is about.
Yeah.
So um but there are so many angles about mindset and manifestation, so many. So why do people want to listen to you specifically about mindset and manifestation? What is it that you provide to your listeners that they're going to be like, oh yeah, like she absolutely gets me, or they absolutely get me, I want to work with her, right? You have to have that why very, very, very defined from the very beginning, because other things in your podcast can evolve. I mean, your why can also evolve, but I feel like your core why it's not going to evolve. Like your core why can be like helping people. Okay, helping people how? How are you gonna provide that transformation in 20, 30, 45 minutes to an hour that however long your podcast is, you know?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So, um, on that note, would there be specific strategies for a very successful podcast launch? Right? Sure, there is. As you go with your podcast and you want it to grow and become more visible and more successful, but when you talk about a launch, is there something specific you can do to help that accelerate, almost expand?
Yeah, so think about it as if you were launching a product, right? Like, there are different phases for the launch. So one of the things that I tell my clients to do is just start hyping people up as soon as you know when your podcast is gonna launch, right? Like, get your audience involved in the process, and that is I think like one of the most easy strategies that you can implement, right? Because like people are already listening to you in whatever social media platform you have, right? But there's a different things if you're starting from scratch, like no audience or whatever, like then there's a building phase kind of thing. But then again, like utilize your audience. Get them super hype about their like the podcast launch. Maybe you do, like I saw a girl here in Vancouver, she did an event to launch her podcast and like the event sold out. It was like super amazing. And what she did was just like I think she played the trailer of her podcast on the event, and then she had like goodie bags and then all those things. So like that is one thing that you can, one, monetize your podcast, two, get people in the room that are going to be interested in your podcast that have not listened to it, and three, make connections. Like people are there because they want to be there. They believe in you, right? So that is one way to really like a strategy. But there are so many different strategies that work for different people. Can it be like a giveaway of like a VIP day? Like if you're a business owner, for example, like I'm just thinking about coaches and the services that they provide, right? Could it be an event is really popular? Could like also another strategy that I really like is to launch with at least 3 or 4 episodes. Because another thing about podcasting is that it takes a lot of time. So if you're doing it yourself, give yourself at least 2 to 3 months like leeway to really
Wow.
plan your podcast. And then like again, the freebie that I have that you ask about it is like how to launch
Yeah.
your podcast in 5 weeks. You can launch a podcast in one day if you want to. You can launch.
If you say do it yourself, you mean record it, edit, get all the things. So you
Yeah.
don't really need an editor to do that for you. You can take on all that work yourself. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, you absolutely can, 100%. I do everything like from my podcast myself. But I also have clients that they're like, I don't have time. I just don't want to deal with the editing part. I don't want to deal with the behind the scenes, the cutting of the ums, the
Yes. Okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. Okay, so I really want to talk about your free offer because you brought it up, and it's launch your podcast in 5 weeks, and you say you could do it in a day.
Yeah.
So this is a free offer. Everyone in the audience, actually, before we get into this, drop in the comments below and tell us: are you interested in launching a podcast? Do you have a podcast and you want to really know more about it? Because I promise you, Mafe has got it sorted for you. We're going to drop all the links in the comments. But let's just quickly talk about this launch your podcast in 5 weeks. What is it? Is it an ebook? Is it an audio? Is it like tell us a little bit about it? It's you told me it's a timeline to DIY your podcast. So what is in it? What can people expect when they click that link?
Yeah. So it is a Notion document, actually. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Notion.
No, no, not at all.
So Notion, I don't even know what to call Notion, but it's like it's an organization system, right? It's like uh oh my God, I blanked on the word. A project management tool. So
Oh,
think
nice.
like
Good.
ClickUp, like Trello,
Yes.
Asana, like all of those, but it's more basically you build your own thing in Notion. So what I like about it is that you can have like the same tasks and stuff like that in different views. So so yeah, launch your podcast in 5 weeks. It's a Notion document. So it's just it's a link to like a website basically. So you duplicate it and then work on that. So, but launch your podcast in 5 weeks. It tells you basically what to focus on each week of the launch. So, what you have to do each week to be able to launch your podcast by yourself in 5 weeks. And one of the things that I'm really adamant about is honing in on your why, because that really is the foundation of your podcast. And if you don't have a strong foundation, then your podcast is gonna flop.
Yeah.
So I can't remember. Let me just open it because I haven't looked at this in a while. So
Yes, of course.
so the launch your podcast in 5 weeks. So first of all, I take you through the create like your why. Like why are you creating this podcast? What really sets you apart and to really define your audience. Sorry. To really define your audience because the most important part of having a podcast is knowing who you're talking to. Because if you don't know who you're talking to, then you're just talking into the void. And that's not what you want, right? Like that's not why you want to launch a podcast. And then the week 2 is about all like crafting your description and like going more into like the nitty-gritty of actually having the podcast. Then week 3 is all about editing, choosing your setup and hosting platform, publishing your trailer, because the thing about podcasts is that you have to have at least one episode to be able to send it to the directories, and that is YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all those things. Um, and then yeah, week 4, week 5 is all about promoting, editing the episodes, recording, and just really making sure that you have everything ready to go to be able to launch it. So it's really
Okay.
like
So
it's free. It's a free resource, but it goes like really in depth.
yeah, yes. So you were saying the different platforms like Spotify and Apple Music and whatever. Um, do you how do you just launch it on all of them? Do you have to go through somebody? Is there specific things you have to do? Does this freebie that you offer walk you through all those things so that you know exactly how do I get on Spotify?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's honestly super easy. I feel like because think about it as if it were a website, right? You need a website host to be able to publish your website, right? So think Squarespace, Wix, whatever.
Right.
That is your hosting platform. Hosting platforms for podcasts, there are so many. So many. Like one of the most popular ones right now, because again, like it's so easy to launch a podcast, and this is why I'm telling you that you can literally launch it in a day, is Spotify for creators. You basically just create an account there and it's free. Like you don't have to pay for anything.
What?
And then you upload your episode and then that's it. That's your episode is published.
What? That's incredible. It's incredible how easy it is. And I think in our minds, we make it out to be this super complicated thing. Are you okay? I feel like I need to pat your back or something.
Yeah.
We make out it's such a complicated thing. So it's so lovely how you break it down. And I love that you break it down in 5 weeks, because otherwise I think you'll get so overwhelmed with everything you have to do. So that's so lovely, that process and the build up. And then eventually you launch it. So I absolutely love that. I know you also got another product, which is a $27 product. It's called Podcast Reset. People,
Yes.
this is if you have a podcast and you have fallen out of love with it, Mafe is going to help you fall back in love. Tell us a little bit about that special.
This offer is like my baby. This product is my baby. I absolutely love this product because this was born out of me falling out of my falling out of love with my own podcast.
Wow.
So what happened was that 2024 came, this was last year, and then I don't know why, but I decided to take a break from my business. I decided to take a break from my podcast, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna focus on my 9 to 5. I was also like, I didn't see it at the moment, but I was starting to burn out in my 9 to 5, and I was like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to put like to add another thing on my plate, because again, as I mentioned, like having a podcast is a lot of work. If you're doing it by yourself, or
Mm.
if you're doing it correctly by yourself.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
um or if you have a podcast that wants that supports your goals, like your long-term goals. So I just was like, I don't have time for this. I don't want to deal with this. And then I got like I was burned out. I was kind of depressed because I had gone through like a love situation that wasn't really it. And then January of this year came and I was let go from my job, and I was like, you know what? I want to fall in love with my podcast again, and I want to make this a business asset, because for me it was transitioning from hobby to business asset because I didn't really have a plan. I was just posting episodes just for the sake of posting episodes. I was hiding behind my guests. And that's another thing, that if you want to have your podcast as a business asset, you have to do solo episodes. And I feel that so many people are afraid of that, because they're like, well, I'm not the expert. I'm just going to bring someone else to talk about this. And it's like, no. People are
Yeah.
going to you because they want to hear from you. Yes, you can have the occasional guest to maybe dive deeper into something else, but you are the main event. You are the main attraction. You are the one that, like, you are why people are here listening to you, not what Susie or whatever have to say about whatever topic you want, right? So I was like, okay, how can I be how can I make this? So how can I transition my podcast from tourist to local, from hobby to business asset? And I was like, okay, maybe I need to be more vulnerable. So I went to the drawing board. I was like, okay, what is my why? Why do I really want to do this? Who am
Mhm.
I speaking to? And why do I feel like this work is important, right? So I went in, put my head down, wrote all the things, did the dirty work that no one wants to do.
Mhm.
And yeah, I saw a growth of 30% in my downloads in 60 days.
What?
And I was like, I need to tell people how to do this. I need to teach people how to do this, because like this is so, like, my podcast was fun again, you know?
Wow.
And I just love it. And I was like, how do I make this so that, one, people can do it in a weekend, because no one has time to go through an hour masterclass or whatever it is. How do I make this so that people can do it in a weekend, and how do I make this super easy? So I was like, you know what? Like, people are listening to podcasts, so I'm going to do a private podcast audio. So
Yay.
the podcast reset is an audio experience. So it's a private podcast. It's 5 episodes, and it takes you through basically the framework that I take all my clients throughout. So the first thing that we do is we set the intention. We set the intention of why we are doing this. The second thing that we do is we get clear, and we get clear on who we're speaking to, right? So those two things are very, like, they're kind of the same, but they're different.
Mhm.
Because in setting the intention, you're setting your why. And then in get clear in when you're getting clear about who you're speaking to. Now, the third one, after you have those two, and I feel like those two, like, setting your intention and getting clear on who you're speaking to, are like the most important two, and then the other two just come naturally, because the third one is to optimize your content. So what is it about your episodes that are going to make your listeners want to come back? Is it the sound effects? Is it because they have like a movie in their ears that they want to keep coming back to you? Is it the conversations that you have? Is it how you say things, right? And then the last one, and the last part of the framework, is get visible and grow, right? Like, no one, like, you're invisible if you don't promote your podcast, right? Unless people are like actively searching for it, they're not going to find it. So how are you going to get visible to other people? How are you going to promote your podcast to other people so that they can find it? And
Yes.
yeah, that's the framework, and I absolutely love that offer.
I'm loving that offer. I love that it kind of grew out of you, which is so authentic. I think that is so divine. I know you've also said that you do have a done for you podcast production. So you
Mhm.
record it and you forget about it. So people go to you for all the editing. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Fantastic. So, people, you do not have to DIY this on your own, especially because she said it's a lot of work. um, Okay, so that's great. And you also have one-on-one coaching for podcasting, right? Where people can come on. Is this just hour by hour, or is it like a 3 month, 6 months, 12 month? It depends.
No, I don't have any coaching that is like 3, 6 months, whatever. Like
So it's
the
one.
bulk of my my work is done for you services. So again, like as Yvette said, you record your podcast and forget about it. We obviously work with your budget. Maybe you want to do some things in house, and then obviously we when I say we, it's me.
Right, I get you. I get
Me,
you.
me
You
and
and
my
your
coworker, which is my dog.
right.
Um, but yeah, I just make sure that I work with your budget, and depending on like the kind of support that you want, right? Like that's my done for you services. Maybe it's done with you services. And then the other thing that I have that it's mostly coaching is for people that want just like a touch point, you know? Kind of like, oh, I'm not sure about this. Maybe can we like riff off about it, and then we get on a call for an hour and we talk about it, and then I give you all the solutions that I think might help you
Awesome.
with the issue, or not the issue, but with the query that you're having.
Yes. Oh, I absolutely love that. So anyone wanting any of these links, everything is down in the description. I've got Mafe's social handles and her website and the name of her podcast and everything, so that you can go and listen, have a look, dive in deeper, grab that freebie, and then I think even grab the $27 product, especially if you've got a podcast and you need to fall back in love with it and you need to know why you're doing this and you want some motivation and inspiration. Everything is there for you. As I said, all the social handles are down there below if you want to reach out and have a chat, or book a one-on-one session and just
Yeah.
beat it out and just see if you can get some extra ideas.
Yeah.
It was so interesting chatting to you, Mafe. I really appreciate you coming on and being
Thank you,
interviewed.
Yvette.
It was absolutely lovely. What a blast. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add before we say goodbye?
Yeah, if you make sure that if you're launching a podcast, you are really honing in on your why, because if not, I'm coming for you.
Perfect.
But yeah,
Because if
other
it
than that, oh,
flops,
and the podcast reset, I feel like it's not only for, yes, it's mainly for people that have podcasts, but then it can also help you if you're launching a podcast and you're kind of lost, because
cool.
the launch our podcast in 5 weeks takes you through the technical and maybe a little bit of the why and all that stuff. But on the podcast reset, we really, really go deep into like your podcast description, your title, and things that may be a little bit
Wow.
like too much. So yeah.
Yes. So
So
much
yeah.
to think of. I mean, just the way you were saying, like your intro and the description of it, you obviously have a photograph that goes with it, and you've got a name, and you've got the music, and you've got all the things. And I think that can get quite overwhelming when you're just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's lovely. It's lovely, the freebie and the podcast reset that you've got. I think it could really just help someone if they're very serious about it and they've got the time to sit down and go through it, and make sure you've got a couple of episodes recorded. So
Yes,
then
yes, definitely.
just
Definitely.
rock it off. You don't want to play catch up, because usually it's about one a week, right? That's like the average, the thing that
That's
I
another thing.
do.
It depends. Like you need to make your podcast work for you. Like
Mm,
you don't have to work harder. You just need to make it work for you. Because maybe what works for you is releasing an episode a month. Maybe. I don't know. Uh
wow. Okay.
maybe what works for you is releasing your podcast in seasons. Maybe what you want to do, you really have the energy and you really have the time and like the planning, then you'll release like an episode every week. But again, like podcasting for me is not a one size fits all. It's more like what works for you, what works for your schedule, what is gonna really like make you feel lit up when you like talk about your podcast, right? So I feel like for me, like that's more important than releasing an episode just for releasing episodes like every week, just because
Yes.
everyone else is doing that, and that's
Yes.
what the gurus say, like that's what works.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Because you do need time for all the editing and all the things. So it can take up all your time. So maybe
Yeah.
use Mafe to do it for you. Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, sweetheart, thank you so much. It was so lovely speaking to you. Again, I appreciate your time. I really value all the guidance you have given us. And I'd love to connect again. Have a
Yeah.
beautiful day further.
Thank you, you too.
You're welcome. Everybody reach out to her and let's start creating some magic through podcasting.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so
Keep
much for
well,
having
everybody.
me.
You're so welcome. Love you lots. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.